Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Sewer's Story Time. It is the 4th of the month. Yes, already, July 4th. There's fireworks going on in the background, but I don't deal with that. I am going to specifically for this 4th, I'm going to have this book that's titled Kin, Rooted in Hope. This book right here. And it is, let's see. It is, let me get this one up here. It is written by Carole Boston Weatherford, and the art is by her son Jeffery Boston Weatherford. And I'm going to read, especially as we're hearing fireworks July 4th. It's in, commemoration of 1776, and this book is perfect for this July 4th. So on the 4th of the month, I always do a story time. And today I decided on the 4th to choose this book. Okay. Carole Boston Weatherford is the author, and she actually signed this. And, right here. For the children of the Virgin Islands. Okay. From Carole Boston Weatherford. So I was fortunate enough to meet her and her son. And because my oldest son passed away, I decided on the 4th of the month I would do story time. I would do a story time. And, because he was born January 4th, and because he was born January 4th, the 4th of the month is when I do the story times. So I wanted to also go live on YouTube as well. And let's see, I possibly can. I may be able to, because this is on YouTube Live. So let's see if I could go live on here and do it that way. So this book is copywritten. What's happening? Oh. This book is copywritten. It's copywritten in, let's see, 2023. It's copywritten 2023. And it is to the ancestors who carried us through, and the generations that will carry on in honor of my parents, Joe and Carolyn. And this is from Carole Boston Weatherford. To my ancestors and everyone who fought forward through all adversity toward the hope of a better future. And to my wife, who encouraged me constantly to do the same. Jeffery Boston Weatherford. So this is a mother-son team, and this is the book. It's titled Kin, Rooted in Hope. And as you, for this, this is the first page of it here. And for Dr. Sewer's Story Time on the 4th of the month, I go live on YouTube and Facebook. But this one is very special for me today. So the title of this first part is called Of Roots and Glory. Of Roots and Glory. And as you listen to the sounds of the fireworks outside, I can see it from my window. The significance of black people in America and the significance of 4th of July is quite daunting. So as I read, this is titled Of Roots and Glory. Before Alex Haley's novel Boots proved otherwise, few black people thought it possible to trace ancestry beyond the cold heart of enslavement to the warm sun of Africa. Some dogged descendants dared the quest, but my teenage self was more concerned about the coming weekend from the past than the past. I learned of Frederick Douglass in social studies, but I knew of only one enslaved ancestor, my great-great-grandfather, Philip Money, whose black and white oval portrait, notable for a bushy mustache, hung in the parlor of our century-old farmhouse. There I grounded in rural villages planted by long-gone relatives and now resting in church graveyards. Land memory sown in my searching soul. Glory, the film about the first black regiment in the Civil War, won Denzel Washington the first of his Academy Awards. Lord, 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 I had no inkling that my own great-great-grandfather, Isaac Cooper, served in the U.S. colored troops. What did a 19-year-old know? I knew after 8 straight nights of roots, I'm saying boots, it's roots, and more black faces than I'd ever seen on TV, that Alex Haley traced his ancestor, Kunta Kinte, from an Annapolis, this is in Maryland, Annapolis auction block, and the 1767 voyage of the Lord Legionnaire to a tribe in the Gambia, West Africa. Now remember, 1776 is what they're out there busting off fireworks to remember, right? And in 1767, Kunta Kinte, right, was on an auction block. 1767. This is 10 years before the 13 colonies decided they wanted, to separate from Britain, and they used this idea of taxation when in fact the root of it was the enslaved Africans and wanting to keep them enslaved. So it keeps on. I could not pinpoint my ancestral origins. I did not know how many generations I would or could go back. I did not know what I might ever know, but I knew the truth would be hard to come by. The next section is titled Gorée Island, Senegal, 2016. Decades before my African homecoming, I had heard of and written about the so-called slave castles, used first for trading gold and later humans. Dozens of these fortresses dotted the continent's Gold Coast, among them Cape Coast, Elmina, and our destination, Gorée. From Dakar, Senegal, we ferry 20 minutes to Gorée Island. a carless outpost of volcanic rock, colonized first by Portugal, later by Holland and France. On deck, vendors clack cachakas, percussion instruments made of two small gourds joined by string. My son buys some as souvenirs. Near the dock, La Maison des Esclaves, the house of slaves. No castle. This museum was once a trading post and a jail where captive Africans were held for weeks, months, until their numbers could fill a ship's belly or until the next vessel bound for the Americas arrived. Narrow slits parse glints of sunlight into gloomy, thick-walled cells where men and women separated, were crowded and manacled. If only the walls could bear witness, confess whether they saw my kin. Through the door of no return, I peer at the Atlantic Ocean. Thousands, maybe millions of Africans were torn from the motherland and herded through that door. Sun-dappled waves lap at rip-rap. If my ancestors were taken from Gore, wouldn't I sense their presence? Wouldn't I hear their cries on the wind? Taste their tears in the salt air? See their ghosts walking on water? Absent such signs, I stand silent. Like a curious child, I quiz Mother Africa. She offers no answers, only her embrace. The next piece is called Cheese Pioke at the Big River, Chesapeake Bay. Right here. This is from the book I'm reading called Kin, Rooted in Hope. It's by Carole Boston Weatherford, and her son did the artwork, Jeffery Boston Weatherford. The Algonquins first named me. The Spaniards called me Bahai de Santa Maria, Bay of St. Mary. Explorers napped my shores, and labyrinth of 150 tributaries. Colonialists settled my peninsula. Planters claimed fertile fields, erected waterfront manors, and named them the Anchorage, Fairview, Hope, the Isthmus, Lomhardy, Myrtle Grove, Peach Blossom, Waverly, and Wye House. To propel the enterprise, ships like the Experiment brought captive Africans, a fount of forced labor in perpetuity. The ports of Annapolis, Patuxent, Potomac, and Oxford for auction, or carried them outward to New Orleans, bound for cotton and sugarcane plantations. Those same ships docked in the Caribbean and carried products like tobacco, wheat, and wool to trade in England. Surely, as I spill into the Atlantic, the current of greed swept me into the triangular trade. Wow, that's deep. So this is the back of it. It says, 1 acorn can grow a tree and seed a forest, or a family tree. So this summer we are looking at family trees. We're looking at family trees this summer, and every student is going to be exploring their own family trees by looking at a native tree that bears fruit. So somebody may be a mango tree, or someone may be a banana tree. So this is the a family tree. I see this is Frederick Douglass, and he has an amazing speech about July 4th. You need to look that up and look at that and what he said. So I'll read a couple more excerpts from this book. And this one is The Point of Collecting Arrowheads. My second son, like I said, I do the story time every 4th of the month to remember my son that passed away. And as I read this next excerpt, it's called Arrowheads. And my second son was born with an arrowhead right on his back, right here, just like the shape of an arrowhead. So, and this is the picture. Okay, this is the picture that Jeffery, Boston, Weatherford did. My farmer friend who has tilled these fields for decades has found enough arrowheads to fill a cabinet of curiosities, relics of tribes that named rivers: Choptank, Tuckahoe, Pocomoke, Wicomoco, Nanticoke. These woodland peoples had hunted the forests and canoed the streams for generations before trading beaver pelts with white men for tools, firearms, jewelry, cloth, and hot water. The nation's ancestral lands were carved up and claimed by European colonialists, and the native population of 20,000 was disseminated by disease and a 26-year war. By law, Englishmen could shoot any Indian who got in their way. The Native Americans handed down plant medicine lore to black healers. Centuries later, an archaeological dig at the old White House blacksmith shop found indigenous pottery and grave goods, denoting a ceremonial site or a burial ground. Over time, native blood mixed with African and European. The first people are still here, in spite of the colonial gaze that erased them and the republic that excluded them from the start. They still drum Earth's heartbeat, while the rivers sing the tribes. Okay. And the mention, it's interesting, the author mentions these rivers: Choptank, Tuckahoe, Pocomoke, Wicomoco, and Nanticoke. These are all in the eastern shore of Maryland, where I teach at the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. And this author is remembering her lineage in that area of Maryland. Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass are two of the individuals who were very important figures during the time of the enslavement in the United States of America. So remember, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you'll see that I have mentioned in my Chanta Samade that Maryland in 1640 became the first colony to institutionalize slavery in America. And it's interesting because, and it's from this book, it's interesting because this is where Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass impacted so strongly because of the stronghold on that area being institutionalized enslavement of human beings. Okay, so when we look at these areas, once I go to Maryland to teach again, I am gonna actually take some time out to explore the Underground Railroad that's there. There's a lot of sacred lands that are the Native American land. Right now, I'm on a committee for land acknowledgement. The university is acknowledging the Native Americans who lived on the land where some of the university is occupying. So the importance of land when it comes to the people who inhabited these lands, it's our duty to look at the land as sacred. You know, don't litter. In other words, don't throw things out the window and litter. You know, the land, we get what we give back, and we are so fortunate that Hurricane Beryl did not, you know, impact the Virgin Islands, and we, you know, still have a ways to go. So Dr. Sewer's story time keeps on with another excerpt from this book. And let's see. And this book, for those who are just coming on to my live, thanks for joining, everybody who's on there. It's called Kin, and it's Rooted in Hope. That's the title, Kin, Rooted in Hope. It received the Coretta Scott King Award for Nonviolent Social Change. So it's got an award, Coretta Scott Award for Nonviolent Social Change. So we want change, and we want it without violence. We want it, you know, to be a tranquil exchange between individuals and a tranquil coming together to have a resolution. Okay, so this excerpt and this book is copywritten. For those of you just joining, the author actually signed it for me. To the children of the Virgin Islands, I told her. And it is signed by her and her son. They both signed it for me. So I got to meet them. And if you look at my page, you'll see I posted a picture of them on there. So this is page 19, and oh, the copyright date. I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. The copyright date is 2023. So this is really new. Okay, this is copywritten, published in 2023. So this page is titled Partus Sequitur Ventrem. Offspring follows belly. Hear ye! A 1662 Virginia legal doctrine declared that offspring follows the belly, meaning children born to enslaved mothers were themselves enslaved from day one. This rule applied even when the father was white or a free black man. Other British colonies followed suit. Thus, enslaved mothers passed down to their children not only family traits, but also hereditary life sentences. Their sole birthright was breath. When I first see the inventory of property on the Lloyd's 1781 ledger, I notice four things. One, my earliest known ancestor, Isaac Cooper, then 21, is the first entry on the page. Two, some enslaved people, including Isaac and his relatives, have surnames. Three, names of children of female house servants are preceded by their mother's first name, the possessive case denoting maternity. Alice's Jack, Peg Shaw's Charlotte, Violet's Luce. 4. The penmanship, the ink, a river of proof that I have followed to the source. Okay. The next section is, let's see, there was, okay, this one is called In Search of Stories. And I'll just show you all the pictures. Beautiful pictures. Jeffrey is amazing. Jeffrey Boston Weatherford did the pictures. And I got to meet Jeffrey, and he is amazing young man. Okay. So this one is called In Search of Stories. In 1860, 4 million souls were enslaved. Now, if you recall, July 4th, 1776, isn't that before 1860? So 1776, they had their independence, and the Africans who were enslaved wasn't part of that. So in 1860, Carole Boston Weatherford, and she researched this book. To write this book, she researched this information. In 1860, 4 million souls were enslaved, a fraction of the countless captives brought here and the children in bondage since the first kidnapped Africans arrived in the British North American colonies. Black voices marginalized, muted, or muzzled. Black memories taken to the grave and, over time, forgotten. There are few documented first-person accounts of slavery beyond the 19th century narratives and the reminiscence of aging freedmen recorded during the Great Depression. Born in 1872, 7 years after freedom, one generation removed from slavery, my great-grandpa, James Henry Money, never told me that his father, Philip, whose portrait overlooked the parlor, had been enslaved. Grandpa Money did not speak of his father-in-law, Isaac Cooper, who fought in the Civil War after being enslaved at Y House. These omissions can be forgiven. I was just 9 years old when Grandpa Money died. Who knows whether Isaac and Philip shared their recollections of slavery? Was forgetting less painful than remembering? Just as my great-grandfather went blind and passed on without bearing witness, the window to my heritage was shuttered. How could I not let sun in and stories out? Wow, amazing. So this is the picture there. Amazing. I like that. So this is her recollection of her family. So she's taken the family's documented information and put it into this book, where each section is about the family. So this one is called The Lloyd's Lineage. The Lloyd's Lineage. And it's going from dates 1711. Okay, remember 1619, if I'm not mistaken, was when the first documented Africans arrived in Jamestown, Virginia. 1619. And we are looking here at 1711. Edward Lloyd III, 1711 to 1770. And then Edward Lloyd IV, 1744 to 1796. Now that's before 1733, right? On March 13th, 1781, the British plunder my plantation, taking money, jewels, 21 pounds of silver, and 8 blacks. After independence, while I am in Annapolis at the state legislature, enslaved blacks built a new house in the Palladium style, a grand home complete with a portico. By 1783, I owned 260 blacks, 174 horses, 799 sheep, 571 horned cattle. One schooner, 50 ounces of silver plate, and 72 tracts of land totaling more than 118 acres. These I enslaved averaged 35 barrels of corn and 85 bushels of wheat apiece, making my farms among the most profitable in the region. So this comes from a ledger, okay? A ledger. It's the Lloyd's lineage. It's a ledger, and she found that information. So we are getting some rain. Yep, we are getting some rain. Look at that. So this goes to 1744 to 1796, 1779 to 1834. Remember, 1848 is what we're celebrating for July 3rd. And then we have 1798 to 61. So that is between the 1848, and I'll read this one. Unlike my father, I am foremost a farmer. When tobacco profits fall, I turn the fields into grain. 21 farms across 9,000 acres rank me the state's leading wheat grower and cattleman. I own 468 blacks, worth more than $28,000. Too many to personally account for. My eyes, the overseers, wield the lash and report runaways. Noah, 26 years old, 5 feet 10 or 11 inches high, stout and black, has very full, ill-shaped feet and is clumsy. Jenny, 22 years old, chestnut color, middling size, and a well-shaped woman. $100 for delivery of the man, $50 for the woman. I cannot afford to lose a single soul. With declining profits from grain crops and a growing population of the enslaved, my family lacks the funds to run a sprawling agricultural enterprise. So this goes on, and they call sugarcane white gold. Okay, white gold. To reverse our fortunes, I looked south to Mississippi, where cotton is fast becoming king, and Louisiana, where sugarcane is white gold. Scouting a opportunity, I travel south and give those whom I enslave a chance to go with me, a reward for good behavior. When no one takes me up on the offer, I make relocation a punishment instead. Left behind to manage Y House, my wife, Alicia, writes that she cannot run the plantation on a mere $50 a month. For quick cash, I sell some of the enslaved who traveled with me. All told, I ship dozens of black people south. So interesting, and it goes on 1825 to 1907, and it goes to 1881. In 1881, Frederick Douglass returns to White House. So Frederick Douglass, let's see where it began for him in. He was at this same house that is being spoken about here. And they mention Talbot County, and that's in Maryland, Allegheny County in Maryland, Madison County in Mississippi. So in 1881, Frederick Douglass returns to White House, arriving by boat from nearby St. Michael's. There, he makes peace with Thomas Covey, a notorious slave breaker whose plantation was named Mount Misery. Years earlier, after repeated beatings at Covey's hand, then 16-year-old Douglass landed a punch that knocked his master down. On our porch, Douglass sips drinks with my son. I am conveniently unavailable. Days later, the Chesapeake Bay Yacht Club requests my resignation for entertaining a black man at my home. Isn't that interesting? So, and then this one I have to read, Between Rivers. And then, oh my goodness, Frederick Douglass. So, this one is important because it's about swimmers. And it's called Between Rivers. Between Rivers. Okay? Between Rivers. We were swimmers. Children growing up on the coast of West Africa could swim by age 6. After one shipwreck, a captive African swam 60 miles to shore. At events on or beside American waters, enslaved people served as lifeguards in case white land robbers needed saving. What does that say? Landlubbers needed saving. We were swimmers, enslaved fishermen, pearl divers, and deep sea treasure hunters. For sport, white spectators wagered on matchups between us. We were swimmers until it dawned on the enslavers that we might escape by water, making our trail undetectable, or even worse, causing loss due to drowning. Soon, both swimming and giving lessons were banned until the skill and know-how was almost lost to one-time mermen. In place of our natural buoyancy, enslavers instilled terror, punishing disobedience with public water torture and conjuring tales of sea monsters. Surely, Talbot County, Maryland's 600 miles of tidal shoreline, taunted black souls who dreaded the very rivers that offer deliverance. We were swimmers, baptized in creeks, the currents, a barrier and a bless If blood is thicker than water, then our faith is deeper than fair. Wow. That's awesome. This next one is titled Frederick Douglass and Education. Once you learn to read, you will be forever free. Once you learn to read, you will be forever free. Growing up in Maryland, I knew Frederick Douglass first as the topic of dinner table talk between my parents. They referred not to Douglass, the abolitionist, and statesman who had crossed paths with my enslaved ancestors as a child, but to the institution that was once the only high school for black Baltimoreans. My father attended Douglass, where he played trumpet and football. Later, after service in World War II and a college degree on the GI Bill, he worked at Douglass for almost 3 decades, chairing the Industrial Arts Department and teaching printing. At my mother's urging, Daddy used my early poems as typesetting exercises for his students. They learned to run the letter pieces and the letter press rather, and I learned that my words could endure. I did not know then that Douglass himself had been a printer or a beacon of genius. A training ground for musicians like Cab Calloway, one-time headliner at New York's famed Cotton Club. Douglass was known for its concert choir, which performed African American spirituals a cappella and made Handel's Messiah, climaxing with the Hallelujah chorus, an annual holiday tradition. Though I went to a newer school, I took 2 classes at Douglass. If swimming and driver's education count, Douglass was where I mastered land and water and first felt the freeing power of swimming a lap or of steering a car. Each feat a rite of passage from the deck of the Olympic-sized pool. The ever-patient Coach Cragway succeeded where the others had failed in teaching me to swim. Douglass was where I conquered fear at age 12 and dove into the deep end. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Awesome. Now, this one is a portrait of Frederick Douglass, 1818 to 1895. Born Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey. And it goes, you can see the picture of Frederick Douglass there. So on July 4th, I really remember Frederick Douglass. I think we should honor and celebrate Frederick Douglass on July 4th. And this next page is From My Bondage and From My Freedom by Frederick Douglass. So Frederick Douglass, this is an excerpt from his book. Okay, and he mentions Uncle Isaac Cooper, who is the author's great-great-great-great-grandfather. Okay. All right, then Isaac Cooper is mentioned. So we have, this is a beautiful book because it has, you know, written words, and then it has pictures. Okay? Written words, and then it has pictures. So, I'm not going to read the entire book tonight, but I just wanted to share an excerpt of the book so that you could, you know, this is the book for Storytime with Dr. Seward. So I will it's past my bedtime. Oh, excuse me so much. There's an author's note. See, there's an author's note in the back. And there's also a illustrator's note as well. Illustrator's note. Okay. And then there is a bibliography. So this is her references. She used these references. So this is another page of reference that she's using there. Okay. So this has inspired me to do my own book of the Sewer family and the dynamic of it, and using documented information to go by. So right now I'm going to start, I haven't yet, but to go through family documents. There's boxes and boxes of family documents that we're creating for a Sewer Family Foundation, a Sewer Family archives, that we can put this information in for the next generation. So this book inspired me, and I'm so glad you shared Dr. Sewer's Storytime with Dr. Sewer, Storytime with Dr. Sewer. Thank you so much. Tune in on August 4th for another story time. Depending on the day, I may do it live with the students. It is a Thursday. No, wait. No, August 4th is a Sunday. So the next time I do story time with Dr. Sewer is August 4th, and that's a Sunday. Okay, so I'll find a place on St. John to set up my live and do story time on Sunday someplace where we can have an audience. So if you know of somewhere on St. John that would like to do story time on Sunday, August 4th, let me know. Okay, I can double up and do it there as well as go live on the 4th. So see you on the 4th, the next 4th, with another story time with Dr. Sewer. Take care.